Your name, first of all, is that your real name?
If Pope John Paul II was come here, would you ask him what his real name was?
Well, but you have to admit, it's an interesting name, Mr. T.
He didn't roll into Hollywood on any red carpet. He walked in under suspicious eyes. An outsider with a body built like steel and draped in gold chains so heavy, people whispered he wore them to hide his pain. That one line, "I pity the fool," turned him into a legend, but fame couldn't wash away the shadows following him.
Right, well, I changed it because I wasn't given respect before. You know, people have a tendency to always constantly call a man boy. For what reason, I don't know why, so I changed my name to Mr. T, so the first word out everybody's mouth be Mr. That's a sign of respect.
Behind the bright lights came jealousy, prejudice, and whispers from those who thought he was just another tough guy with no brains. Some who once praised him, clapped him on the back, later turned cold the moment his star started to shine the brightest. Now, after decades of silence, Mr. T finally opens up and admits there was one man he could never stand. Fans couldn't believe it. The story begins not in Hollywood, but in Southside Chicago, with a kid named Lawrence Terode, the boy who swore he'd never let anyone disrespect his name again.
Now, do you have a first name?
First name is Mr. My middle name is that period. My last name is T.
Born in 1952, Lawrence grew up in one of America's roughest neighborhoods, the Robert Taylor homes. Picture it, old crumbling buildings stuffed with more than 27,000 people, surrounded by poverty, gangs, and constant tension. It was a battlefield just to make it through the day. Lawrence was the youngest of 12 kids. 12! He watched his mother fight to keep the family going after his father, Reverend Nathaniel, walked out when Lawrence was only 5. His mom held everything together on barely anything, raising her children in buildings cracked by struggle, but never losing faith.
I'm looking at you with, I don't know, $10 million worth of diamonds and gold and everything, and then I'm looking at your shoes that are just a disaster. Now, you explain to me.
That's where the legend of Mr. T was born. In hardship, pride, and a promise that no one would ever call him by a name that disrespected who he truly was. People didn't even call young Lawrence by his name. They called him a word that cut deeper than any punch. To him, it wasn't just an insult, it was a way of putting him down, reminding him he was less than.
Looking tacky.
You see, well, to some people they might say it's tacky, but there's a message in these shoes. You see, these shoes keep me humble.
That word sliced into his pride like a knife, and he never forgot the sting. Years later, he explained, "I changed my name to Mr. T because my father, my brother, my mother, they were never called Mr. a day in their lives. With me, that ends. It wasn't a stage name, it was a promise. A declaration of respect from a man who'd fought too long to be looked down on." From that moment, Lawrence Terode became Mr. T, a name built on defiance and self-worth. He carried that fire everywhere, through school hallways, across football fields, into military life, and later, straight into Hollywood.
If you recall last time that we met, I had these shoes. They wasn't in that bad of a shape, but these shoes were handed down through my...
At Dunbar High School, he was a beast on the mat and field, winning the city wrestling title 3 times. But still, people saw only the muscles, not the mind. Teachers, classmates, they labeled him a brute before he even spoke. At Prairie View A&M University, he earned a scholarship for athletics, but after 1 year, he was expelled. No one asked why, no one cared. To them, he was just a fighter, not a thinker. Even in the Army, as a military policeman, his strength and discipline were twisted into something negative.
Family, my father wore, my brothers wore, and things like that. So they keep me humble, keep me and let me remember that I have a brothers and sisters back in Chicago, not doing to where I got mother and father that I must take care of. So you see, out in Hollywood, and especially all the money that I'm making now, it's so easy for me to get caught up in all these material stuff and forget where I'm coming from.
People saw a tough guy, not the man behind the uniform. After leaving the military, he became a nightclub bouncer on Chicago's Wild Rush Street, where fights broke out almost nightly. He said he'd been in more than 200 scuffles and won nearly all of them. But out of that chaos, Mr. T was born, with a bold mohawk inspired by African warriors, gold chains heavy as armor, and a walk that screamed power and pride. Then came the break that changed everything. In 1980, NBC launched a wild competition called America's Toughest Bouncer. And Mr. T didn't just join it, he owned it. He dominated every round, knocking out the competition and stealing the spotlight on national TV. Word spread fast, even without the internet. His fight clips were everywhere. And guess who saw them? Sylvester Stallone. The moment Stallone laid eyes on Mr. T, he said, "This is the man Rocky has to face." Just like that, the Chicago bouncer living day-to-day walked straight into Hollywood and landed the role of Clubber Lang in Rocky III. The movie dropped in 1982, pulled in a massive $125 million, and overnight, that one line,
So wherever I'm whether I'm with a governor or a mayor or a reception or whatever, I look down at my shoes and let me know, hey, I can't get too carried away here. So it keeps me level. As I say, I want to keep my feet on the ground and my head towards heaven.
I pity the fool, or turned Mr. T into a cultural storm, but behind the fame was pain. Hollywood didn't see him as a real actor, just a lucky tough guy who stumbled into success. He'd never been to acting school, and the crew made sure he felt it. People whispered, calling him just muscles that yell. Some even wanted a stunt double to replace him. Imagine that insult, after all the years he fought to prove himself.
Why did my father send you here?
Because he cares. Face front.
Who was talking?
Me.
Fine.
Mr. T said filming Rocky III was rough because everyone seemed to wait for him to fail to prove he didn't belong. Rocky made him famous, but it also left scars. Everyone thought Stallone made him, not that he built himself. Still, he kept grinding.
I'm Hulk Hogan, and I won't be alone tonight when I defend my world championship title against Cowboy Bob Orton, because my main man, Mr. T, brother, is gonna be in my corner.
Then came his next move, the one that defined his whole career. Be a Baracus in the A-Team. When it premiered in 1983, it exploded across the world. Mr. T was pulling in up to $80,000 a week, one of TV's highest paid stars. Kids everywhere were rocking mohawks and gold chains trying to be him. But fame came with friction, and his biggest enemy wasn't outside Hollywood, it was right there on set.
That's right, Hulk, baby. And if that fool, Roddy Piper, step his nose in the ring, he gonna answer to me. I pity that fool. You know, I pity that fool too. So kick back and relax for Saturday night's main event.
George Peppard, the classic movie star from Breakfast at Tiffany's, saw Mr. T not as a teammate, but as an outsider, a showman, not a real actor. George Peppard couldn't stand it. This loud, gold-draped newcomer stealing the spotlight he once owned. To Peppard, Mr. T was everything wrong with the new Hollywood. Flashy, bold, unapologetic. He didn't hide his feelings either, saying straight up, he can't act. All he does is shout and break things. That was just the start of a feud that would shake the A-Team set.
My name is Stephanie. What's your name?
Stephanie, I'm Mr. T, fool.
You are. I cannot believe this.
You better believe
You are
it.
like
You better believe it.
an icon.
For years, Peppard refused to even talk to Mr. T directly, calling him that guy with the gold. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Things hit a boiling point when Peppard found out Mr. T was the highest paid actor on the show. It drove him mad. Then one day, Mr. T read an interview where Peppard trashed him in the press. Furious, he stormed to Peppard's trailer, slammed the newspaper down and yelled, "Say it to my face!" No one dared step in. The silence said it all. But this wasn't just a workplace clash, it was bigger, a battle between two eras. One, an old school star watching his fame fade, the other, a self-made man from the projects who kicked Hollywood's door open without asking permission.
Oh, I'm
Mr. T.
a humble icon. And you know what I said in Rocky 3? Hey woman, that's all I'm gonna say.
Under those cold, judging eyes, Mr. T learned something vital. If he didn't demand respect, he'd never get it. That's why he kept the mohawk, the gold, and the fearless attitude. Every chain, every glare was a reminder. He'd once been a kid denied his own name, and he swore that would never happen again. But here's the twist. The person he hated most wasn't Peppard, wasn't a co-star, and wasn't even a rival in Hollywood. It was someone tied to a wound much older, one buried deep from childhood.
And I'm gonna say, hey, Mr. T.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And as the A-Team hit its peak with "I Ain't Getting on No Plane" echoing across America, a silent war was brewing behind the cameras. Pride, jealousy, and two strong men locked in a battle of generations. Behind the cameras, things couldn't have been more different. On screen, they were a team, but off screen, total opposites. Every day was a battlefield of egos with sparks flying non-stop. And here's what shocked everyone.
Hey, this is Mr. T, and I pity the fool who don't vote for JB. You got that? Good. Thank you, Mr. Governor.
The person who frustrated and drained Mr. T the most wasn't the media or the fans, and it was the man working right beside him, George Peppard. Back in the 1960s, Peppard was Hollywood royalty, polished, charming, and always center stage. He made millions and was used to being the man. But time hits hard. By the 1980s, his fame had faded fast, mostly because of his temper and stubborn pride. The A-Team was supposed to be his big comeback, his last chance to shine.
You're my bodyguard? I don't want a bodyguard.
Hey, kid, this isn't the thrill of my life either. But your father hired me to do a job, and I'm gonna do it.
But fate had a cruel twist waiting. The show meant to save his career ended up making a new star, and it wasn't him, it was Mr. T. From day one, Peppard could feel it slipping away. Kids on set chased after Mr. T. His face was on lunchboxes, t-shirts, and toys everywhere. And when paychecks came in, the gap was clear. Peppard was pulling around $25,000 an episode, but Mr. T, he was making up to $80,000 a week. On top of that, NBC started pushing Mr. T front and center in all the promos, posters, and press interviews.
Anybody mind? Now who's Ox?
The fat guy.
For Peppard, that wasn't just business. It was humiliation. His ego couldn't handle it, so he stopped calling Mr. T by his name completely. He wouldn't say T or Baracus. Instead, he sneered and called him the man with the gold, like Mr. T was nothing more than his chains and flash. He even refused to speak to Mr. T directly, passing messages through Dirk Benedict instead. Everyone on set knew it, but no one dared get involved. To Peppard, this cold silence said it all. I'm the real actor, you're just a trend.
Where you sit?
Behind Richard, sir.
Not anymore. I'm sitting there. Do you mind?
Oh, no.
But that unspoken war was about to explode after one interview, where Peppard crossed a line that Mr. T couldn't ignore. George Peppard finally crossed the line. In an interview, he flat out said Mr. T wasn't a real actor. He called him the worst performer in the cast and hinted that Hollywood would soon get tired of muscle-bound showmen. The article hit Mr. T during his lunch break. He read it once, his face darkened, and his fists tightened till every muscle looked ready to burst.
All right, class. Now, I'm sorry I'm late. If we'll all just settle down, then we can... Ooh! Well, excuse me, sir, but class is about to begin, and I'm afraid you'll have to leave.
No.
Fine.
Without a word, he stood up and stormed toward Peppard's trailer. The door slammed so loud the crew froze. In front of everyone, he threw down the magazine and shouted, "Say these words again, but say them to my face." The air turned to ice. Both men stood inches apart, tense as wild beasts, one wrong move away from an all-out fight. Wrestling legend Hulk Hogan, who later guest starred on the A-Team, said he often had to play referee between the two. Producers relaxed when Hogan was around, because his presence kept things from exploding. Still, the rivalry didn't cool, it just burned slower. Weeks passed where Mr. T and Peppard didn't exchange a single word. They'd step on set, act their lines perfectly, then walk away in silence. Total pros, but locked in a cold war. Actor Robert Vaughn, who joined the show in the final season, said, "I've never seen two people hate each other that much, yet act together so well." The feud even spilled over to the crew. At one point, Mr. T demanded 7 workers be fired after a dispute connected to Peppard. When the studio refused, he packed up and walked off set. Peppard fired back, threatening to quit if the network kept favoring Mr. T. The entire production nearly fell apart under the weight of 2 massive egos. One from old Hollywood, one from the new age of pop icons. But here's the twist no one saw coming. After the A-Team ended in 1987, time changed everything. Peppard's health declined, and Mr. T later battled lymphoma in 1995. Yet before Peppard passed in 1994, he sent Mr. T flowers and a note, admitting that despite all their fights, he respected his drive, his work ethic, and his unshakable will. It was a gesture that came too late. A handshake that never happened, but enough to finally end the storm between 2 men who refused to bow to each other. Still, for Mr. T, the sting of those cold looks and cutting words from people he thought would respect him never fully faded. Yet even so, George Peppard wasn't the man Mr. T hated most. That pain came from someone else. A shadow that reached all the way back to his childhood struggles in Southside Chicago. The next battle came from an entirely different world, the world of professional wrestling. This time, the opponent wasn't an actor, but a fighter. Rowdy, Roddy Piper. The tension Mr. T faced on the A-Team set was nothing compared to the fury waiting for him in the WWF ring. If Pepper symbolized old Hollywood arrogance, then Piper represented raw, untamed hostility. The wrestling ring wasn't just a stage for him, it was sacred ground, and he saw Mr. T as an outsider trespassing on it. In the 1980s, when egos in wrestling were bigger than the muscles themselves, Piper made it clear he didn't want Mr. T standing next to him as an equal. Piper was chaos personified, quick, fiery, and unpredictable. Mr. T came from the TV world, polished, branded, and larger than life, but Piper, he was the real deal, a fighter raised on bruises and back slams. To him, wrestling was his home, and when a gold-covered Hollywood actor stepped in, it felt like disrespect. From the first WrestleMania meeting in 1985, Piper didn't hide his irritation. He looked at Mr. T like a gatecrasher, fake, flashy, and out of place. Then during a live TV segment, Piper suddenly slapped Mr. T across the face so hard that security rushed in. It wasn't scripted. Later, Piper admitted, "I wanted him to know this isn't television. This is my world." According to Hulk Hogan, Piper and some wrestlers even tried to rough Mr. T up during training, testing if he could take real hits. The pressure was brutal. The night before WrestleMania, Mr. T broke down, exhausted and scared, ready to leave Madison Square Garden before the match. Hogan found him packing, saying quietly, "Man, I can't do this." But Hogan didn't let him quit. He sat beside him for hours talking, encouraging, and reminding him why he came this far. And when the lights came on, Mr. T walked into that roaring arena, facing the crowd head-on. Amid the deafening screams, he and Hogan won, even though Piper fought dirty till the very end. That first fight was just the beginning. In 1986, WrestleMania 2 reignited the fire. This time, Mr. T faced Rowdy Roddy Piper in a high-profile boxing match. But Piper wasn't about to let him walk away looking like a hero. The script was changed. The bout would end with Piper body-slamming Mr. T, an obvious foul that would get him disqualified. Piper agreed to lose, but only if it didn't make Mr. T look victorious. That pride, that unbreakable ego kept their feud alive for years. Piper's anger wasn't just about one match. He despised what Mr. T represented: TV fame, celebrity hype, and the idea that Hollywood could step into wrestling's sacred ground and steal the spotlight. To Piper, wrestling was real. Blood, sweat, and bruises. Not a scripted show for outsiders. And Mr. T, he never fought Piper outside the ring or lashed out in revenge. But everyone knew the pain was real. He trained for hours every day, mastering holds and punches, determined to prove he wasn't a fraud. Still, no matter how hard he worked, the wrestling crowd saw him as a Hollywood fake. That rejection cut deep. Years passed, and the fury finally began to fade. Piper was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005. Nearly a decade later, in 2014, Mr. T stood on that same stage, calm, composed, dressed sharp in a black suit. And when he mentioned Piper, it was with respect, not resentment. It was like watching an old storm finally settle. But deep inside, who knows if those old wounds ever truly healed? Because here's the truth. Piper hated Mr. T for being an outsider. Pepper hated him for being too popular, but neither of them were the man Mr. T hated the most. That person came from a much darker place, a betrayal that went deeper than any punch or insult. A man who once called himself a friend, then turned into a foe, demanding 20% of everything Mr. T earned. The battles in the ring, the fights behind the cameras, they were nothing compared to this. The real wound in Mr. T's life didn't come from rivals. It came from someone he trusted, someone who turned respect into a debt he could never repay. The deepest cut didn't come from enemies. It came from those who once called him friend. That betrayal taught Mr. T one harsh truth. The most dangerous person isn't the one who hits you. It's the one who smiles, pats your shoulder, then stabs you in the back. Two men, Calvin Hollins and John Batoy, were proof of that. They'd worked beside Mr. T back in his bouncer days at a Chicago nightclub, freezing through long nights and watching him take down troublemakers hundreds of times. They saw his legend grow, the man who never lost a fight. When Mr. T joined America's Toughest Bouncer in 1980, Hollins and Batoy claimed they were the ones who got him there. They said they opened the door that led to Sylvester Stallone, the very door to his Hollywood dream. Then came the betrayal. They demanded 20% of his income for life, all based on a supposed verbal promise. No contract, no proof, just words said by a broke man still fighting for his next meal. But in 1984, after Mr. T became a worldwide superstar, they sued him. They told the court that Lawrence Turode had sworn to share his success if he ever made it. They claimed they discovered him, built him, made him. To them, his fame was a debt. To him, it was pure greed. Mr. T denied everything, saying he owed them nothing but old memories. What followed was a brutal 12-year legal war. Years of headlines painting him as ungrateful, even as he tried to protect his family name. That's what hurt most, because he always said his greatest pride was honoring his mother, his family, and his roots. Then came the blow. In 1996, the Chicago court ruled against him. Mr. T had to pay $4.9 million, roughly 20% of what he'd earned at his peak. It wasn't the money that crushed him. He once made $80,000 a week. It was the betrayal, the laughter, the loyalty, the friendship, all gone, replaced by cold stares across a courtroom. He'd faced danger, arrogant stars, and fierce wrestlers, but nothing drained him like this. The spotlight that once lifted his name now revealed greed in the people closest to him. Years later, when asked about it, he just said, "That was a lesson in trust." No anger, no bitterness, just silence that spoke volumes. Because for Mr. T, betrayal from friends hit harder than any punch ever could. If Mr. T ever kept a list of people he could never forgive, Hollins and Bytoy would be right at the top. But beyond all the lawsuits, jealousy, and fights, beyond the noise and spotlight, lies the truth most people never saw. Mr. T was never just a roar, never just muscles, and never just the man with the gold chains Hollywood paraded around. For years, critics questioned him. Was he truly talented or just lucky? Even George Peppard once said he couldn't act. After the A-Team magazines mocked him, claiming he became famous by playing himself. But time has a way of setting the record straight. Mr. T didn't need acting school. He had something rarer, instinct. His character, B.A. Baracus, wasn't just a TV role, it was a full-blown phenomenon. That mohawk, those heavy gold chains, the booming growl, and the legendary catchphrase, "I pity the fool," all fused into one unforgettable image. He became so iconic that when people saw Mr. T in real life, they instantly thought of Baracus. And when they thought of Baracus, they pictured Mr. T's face. That connection between man and character was pure power, something few TV actors have ever achieved. Dwight Schultz, who played Murdoch, once admitted openly, people watched the A-Team mainly to see what Mr. T would do next. It was a rare but brutally honest truth. Off screen, Schultz said, Mr. T was completely different, sweet, calm, and respectful, not the angry, loud brute everyone imagined. The crew saw it too. Behind the gold and the fame, Mr. T wasn't some rookie who got lucky, he was the heart of the show. And when it came to discipline, he carried himself like a soldier, sharp, punctual, and committed. Fame never changed his work ethic. He earned his respect every single day. Mr. T once said his mother gave him the best advice of his life. If you work for someone, be loyal and give your best. And that's exactly what he lived by. No matter how heated things got with Peppard, no matter how many times tension exploded on set, he never showed up late, never ruined a scene out of anger. His discipline and focus never slipped for a second. Producers came to trust him completely, knowing he'd always deliver. Even Peppard, before he passed, sent Mr. T flowers as a final gesture of peace, a silent admission that Mr. T's professionalism and strength had earned his respect at last. It proved what time eventually made clear. Mr. T's talent and integrity outshined every bit of prejudice thrown his way. But his legacy stretches far beyond Hollywood or the wrestling ring. His real impact came from how he turned pain and prejudice into power and pride. When asked why he wore all that gold, Mr. T once said, "My ancestors were chained in iron. I wear gold chains to remind myself I still carry that burden. Only now, it's worth something." What sounded like a simple line actually carried the weight of history. A message about resilience, heritage, and strength. Then, when life tested him again in the 1990s with a lymphoma diagnosis, he didn't just fight, he used his survival to lift others. He visited hospitals, spoke with kids battling illness, and even donated all his Dancing with the Stars earnings to children's charities. The man once mocked for only playing tough guys turned out to have one of the biggest hearts in the game. The WWE later credited him as a key reason WrestleMania exploded into a global phenomenon, blending wrestling with pop culture forever. That's why in 2014 he was rightfully inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Even today, his name carries serious weight. Mr. T remains a symbol of grit, pride, and perseverance. A man who proved through every struggle that respect isn't given, it's earned. Respect, it's not handed out, it's earned through willpower, perseverance, and pure grit. Not everyone liked Mr. T, and plenty of people doubted him from day one, but that's exactly what makes his journey unforgettable. He didn't wait for Hollywood to validate him. He built his own legacy, his own legend, his own brand of power. As Dwight Schultz once said, Hollywood is full of egos. Mr. T's ego is something you can't duplicate. And maybe that's his real genius, not measured in trophies or awards, but in the kind of impact no one else could ever copy. The name that critics once dismissed as a short-lived gimmick has now become a permanent mark in pop culture history. Mr. T's story is both beautiful and brutal. A man with a body of armor and a soul full of scars the camera could never show. From the poverty of Chicago's streets to the glare of Hollywood fame, from wrestling rings to courtroom battles over greed and betrayal, his life wasn't easy, but it was real. Through all the highs and heartbreaks, he never lost his humor, his faith, or his gratitude for those who stood by him when the lights faded. That's what made him more than a celebrity. That's what made him a legend. If you want to keep uncovering the untold stories, wild scandals, and secret struggles of Hollywood's biggest icons, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive, and drop a comment below telling us which legend you want to see next. See you in the next one.